Hello adventurers, this is Craddock and welcome back. Today we're going to be going over the Rathma T13 build I put together. This is, I'm going to call it Rathma's Requiem, named so for the one of the main items in the build, the Requiem Cereplate. Devour restores an additional 100% essence in life. In addition, when Devour restores essence in life above the maximum, the excess is granted over a duration, which is really nice for spamming Singularity Skeletal Mages. That's right, this particular rune consumes all of your essence, but creates powerful minions with extra damage. So you can use your essence pool basically as a guide for how powerful you want to make your minions. Or vice versa, you can control how many minions you want to output. It just depends on the situation, which is really nice though. It makes a very powerful build, even at such a low, I'm going to guess so, gear score, or whatever you want to call it. I'm only at 350k here, sheet damage, little above 7500 int, 40% crit. I took the emerald out of my weapon just so I could lower my crit hit damage some, you know. This is a very tame setup, and I'm still able to rock T13 in, like, I think the quickest run I did was 2 minutes 30 seconds, and the longest was like 6 minutes. So that gives you a range, but most of the time it was between, I don't know, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, that area. So this is a very good build to start with, and let's, I guess, dive in. So I've already pointed out the main mechanic that we're gonna use to deal damage through our primary skill here, Skeletal Mage. We're basically using Devour to consume corpses to give us extra essence to boost our mages. That's the general idea. But we have other things in the build to help boost our essence. We've got a primary here that we can channel. Siphon Blood, Purity of Essence. Essence gained is increased to 20 while you're at full health. This has a very good synergy with the Requiem Cereplate, because if you recall, it restores life as well as essence. So we're pretty much going to be topped off most of the time on our health, so we can gain advantage of this rune additionally without having to worry. And the main reason I'm running Siphon Blood, you're like, what's going on? You don't have the Shadow Hook? No, I do not. We are using Scythe of the Cycle in the cube, which is actually a higher damage bonus considering that we're not really boosting our max essence all that much in this particular build. Basically this build is just, you want to be churning out those mages as quick as possible, and I at least was not as concerned with boosting my health pool as much, especially considering for a starter T13 build you might not even have a weapon that has max essence on it, so I kind of wanted to factor that into the build. Now, there are a couple other things that are going to help us generate essence or reduce the cost of our essence. We're going to run with the Templar with the Inspire ability, generates a 10% additional essence. We're also running the Enforcer rune on the command skeletons to reduce the cost. So it reduces the cost from 50 to 25. Really great, considering it saves us a passive slot and allows us to slot something extra, maybe Dark Reaping. While using a Scythe, we gain 2% essence when we kill enemies, which is really cool. And it'll also restore life again, keeping us topped off to supplement our primary, which generates more essence. We're also using the Molting rune on Blood Rush, so whenever we Blood Rush, we will leave a corpse, and it will get devoured, and it will restore a little bit of essence. This is great because I found this to be the best rune. There are times where you are essence starved in this build, particularly in between like groups of enemies, that if there's a large gap, your skeletons do not last as long in this build because we're not running the extra time from the life support rune. They last shorter, they dissipate quicker, it's harder to generate them. It's all around a pain, but everything in the build here is to try and alleviate that, and this is one of those things. It gives you a little bit of essence, just enough to say command your skeletons to get the Justice set, multiplier back and not be stuck there without essence. Or alternatively, get 10 essence just so you can use bone armor and stun the enemies so you don't get insta-gibbed. Something like that. And the cool thing is that we're not even using Krysbin synths in this build. We are using Endless Walk as our one jewelry set multiplier, and we're also using Convention of Elements. So we are completely free, and we don't need to rely on stuns. I just found Dislocation to be the best rune to use, especially when you combine it with the Nemesis Bracers. When you run up to a pylon, you really don't want to not have an AoE stun. It just works really well. If you really want to, you can swap this out for Harvest of Anguish for the extra run speed. I expect that would be like a higher Paragon sort of thing. Note also, I did include the run speed of Fueled by Death here. In the videos you're going to see, this is not being applied because it's bugged right now, just so you understand that I should be running faster in the videos than I am. The 30% movement speed here, which again is refreshed every time you blood rush when you leave a corpse behind, which is really neat. And then we also have movement speed from Boon of the Hoarder, which is really nice, 25%. And we have the Boon of the Hoarder and the Goldwrap for defense, so you just have to remember beginning of the Rift, Rift Guardian, in between packs. Remember to pick up that gold, otherwise you will die. But that's the best way to be able to burst ahead this early in the game, early in the season. Most efficient means of defense. If you can switch to something else once you get to high Paragon, but the focus of this build is low Paragon, and this build does it very well. Speaking of Paragon, let's take a look. This is the test setup I've been running with. As you can see, I have only assigned 125 or 300 Paragons worth of points, I believe. I didn't even get enough to put into max essence. Isn't that a shame? But basically with this build, you're going to want to run attack speed until you hit the breakpoint. The breakpoint is 1.627, I believe. So it's basically 1.63. So just as long as you hit 1.63 on your sheet, you'll know you've hit the breakpoint. This begs the question, where's Tasker and Theo? I dropped it. You don't necessarily need it at low Paragon, and your mages are just hitting so hard that as long as you have enough of them, it shouldn't matter quite as much for T13, at least, I've found. So I found the essence generation to just be superior in every way for the Singularity Mage type of build. I did test the other runes, like Gift of Death and, Skeleton Archer. I tested those. They just felt kind of either weak or slow, just couldn't get them to work, so this is what I ended up with, and I really hope you enjoy it because I'm having a lot of fun. We're running Bane of the Trapped, Enforcer, extra multiplier. Yes, my Enforcer here is 94 compared to my Trapped, which is kind of like a lower level, but I figure, the fact that I've got such a low setup anyway will kind of make up for that. You do want to make rolls wherever you can for physical. Skeletal Mage damage on boots and helm, that's very important. The big thing though is cooldown. So after we hit that 1.63 breakpoint, I think it's 30 frames per attack, or maybe it's 36 frames per attack. It's one of those two that your skeleton mages will get at that attack speed. You can then focus on cooldown as seen here. I just went to the breakpoint and then I put the rest into cooldown reduction. And I had cooldown every place I could put it. Ring, well actually not there, but I'd say 40% is what you want to shoot for. 36 is manageable, but if you can get at least 40%, that makes life a lot easier. I'm running 45 of course here, but early season you might not have as much, but Diamond in the Helm of course, just to get as much as you can. Let's see. And the reason you just want to slot so much cooldown is mainly to blood rush. You want to get around the map as quick as possible, and to do that you need a quick blood rush. But I didn't want to have to force so much pain on the affixes in the gear set itself. So, it's whatever you're comfortable with. Like I said, 36 all the way up to, 45 is a comfortable range to be at for this particular build. You will go a little bit slower because we are not using the metabolism rune here, but I found on dense maps this build actually does a lot better than the Tragul's Skeleton Mage build I put together because it feeds off of density. You're devouring enemies, you're creating even more powerful mages, and it just snowballs until you're destroying everything on the screen. But you'll also notice it has the converse effect. When you have a map that is empty and less dense and more space to run through, the build walks slower than the other build, so you will run slower, you will get less devours, you will kill less enemies, your mages will be weaker, and it will feel slow. It will be slow, in fact. So I figure that, those slow maps and the insanely quick maps kind of average out, so that both of these builds kind of, they're about the same, I'd say. Anyway, I hope you like this build. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, yeah, one more thing before we go. We are using a couple of things to extend the duration of our mages. The Circle of Illusions Evolve, required for this build. And we are also using the Extended Servitude passive to help that here. There are some alternatives. Swift Harvesting I found to be pretty much required for this build. But if you really want to do, you could swap out either Dark Reaping or Fueled by Death for one of these passives. Commander of the Risen Dead is a really good one. This would actually allow you to use a different rune on your command skeleton, so you could use the Freezing Grasp, Dark Mending, Frenzy. All of these are really good runes. It's just what's up to you. Another really good passive to use is Overwhelming Essence. Again, the focus of the build was churning out mages for me, so I didn't want to include this in the build by default, but if you want to swap out some movement speed, you can totally fit this in, or if you want to swap out Dark Reaping, again, you can really fit it in. I really enjoyed having Dark Reaping here, so if there's any passive you're going to swap out, I'd say it'd be the movement speed one. Just swap that out. But those are really good alternatives there. You can also run Final Service. I don't like it because it destroys all my mages, and I hate that, but that's up to you. It's a little more feasible with this build, considering your mages disappear so quick. Those are your alternatives there. And yeah, so some high Paragon alternatives you might consider. You might run a Ring of Royal Grandeur instead of either one of these jewelry type sets. And you might put the Gloves of Worship in. I really enjoy using those. You might put Tasker and Theo in. That's a good choice as well. Alternative amulets you could use is the Hellfire Amulet, and you could fit any one of those passives I just talked about extra into the build. You could also use Dovu Energy Trap to extend the duration of stuns. Actually, I might exclude that one for now, but Hellfire Amulet is a really good one, or just any amulet that fits the build is nice. Guess that's it. So, hope you enjoy this setup. I'll roll some more footage for your enjoyment. So, have a good day. Before I forget, remember to get pickup radius as a secondary on gear. That would go a long way to helping increase your survivability by being able to pick up more gold. Don't forget your collector pet. Collector pet will assist you in picking up gold for you and giving you toughness, which is really nice. I'm going to quickly now mouse over just to show you the test setup, what I was working with in this these rifts that you're going to see here.